Welcome to On the Fly College Edition, a podcast presented by Playfly Sports. I'm your host, Gene DeFilippo. Playfly Sports is the full-service marketing and media company bringing digitally enabled innovations to the sports industry. Our guest on this podcast is Heather Lyke. Heather is the Director of Athletics at Pittsburgh and is definitely one of the top ADs in the country. Heather, we've had trouble putting this together, but finally, we've got you on this podcast. Welcome, my friend.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be with you, Gene. Thanks.
Thank you. Heather, take a few minutes and tell us about your career, about how you started out, when you decided that you wanted to be in administration and whatever. So please take us from your really outstanding career as a softball player at the University of Michigan.
Sure. Well, I'll try to be brief, but I was a product of college sports, and I did happen to play softball at University of Michigan. I played for a woman named Carol Hutchins, who's still coaching today. She's the winningest softball coach in NCAA history. So, and what I learned from her was that if I ever had a career that I enjoyed as much as Hutch loved coaching softball, that I'd probably be successful. And she really taught me about passion, and what is your passion and how do you pursue it? And so that's really what I tried to do. Went to law school, realized I didn't want to be a traditional lawyer, and really had the opportunity to get into college athletics thinking, if I could ever help provide an experience like I had as a student athlete to others, it may be rewarding and meaningful. And so I started working as an intern at the NCAA. My first job was at the University of Cincinnati, working for Bob Goyne, and the late, wonderful Bob Goyne. And I started really in the compliance world because of my legal background. And I think two really important things about compliance. One is you have the opportunity and responsibility to get to know everybody in the athletic department. And so you have a really broad-based understanding of the world of college athletics and how an athletic department operates and all the different areas. And you're a problem solver and a relationship builder. And so in compliance, you've got to build relationships and you've got to be willing to think outside the box and think creatively and help people resolve their issues. And so I spent 2.5 years at Cincinnati, and then I had the privilege to go work for Andy Geiger at the Ohio State University. And I spent, I kind of grew up in the business, I would say, at Ohio State. I spent 15 years there working for both Andy Geiger and Gene Smith. And, I guess what I would say was, what you do is really important in life. Where you do it is sort of next important, but who you do it for and with every day, to me, is the most important factor when you look at job opportunities and where you want to be. Because those people influence your career. They help you, they guide you, they give you opportunities to grow. And so I, want to write a book about what it's like to work for three of the greatest athletic directors in the world, Bob, Gene, and Andy, and very different leadership styles, the three of them, but I learned a whole lot from each of them. And then, really, at one point, I think Gene sort of pushed me along and said, what are you going to do? And I said, today. And he said, no, with your career. And I think he encouraged me, but didn't give me the answers to really search to say, hey, do you want to be an athletic director? And if you do, I'll help you. And so, I really took a little bit more intentional look at my own career instead of just working hard every day. I started to think, where do I want to be? And is this something I really want to pursue? And then had the privilege to go to Eastern Michigan. And I spent 4 years at Eastern Michigan, and just an incredible place. We hadn't been to a bowl game in 29 years. We ended up going to the Bahamas Bowl. Just an awesome experience for those student athletes and coaches. And then I had the opportunity to come to the University of Pittsburgh. I'm a Midwest kid. I love, being close to Ohio. And so I'm only an hour and a half from home. And Pitt is fantastic. Again, a chance to work location-wise was ideal. But once I got to know the chancellor here and Pat Gallagher, it's been an extraordinary experience. I've been here for 4 years, going on my 5th year here coming up. Chance to compete in the ACC. When you're competing for ACC championships, you're competing for national championships. So it's a place I really enjoy, and have had a wonderful time building a team and have a great group of coaches that I really enjoy working with every day.
Well said. Very good. Heather, when you took the job at Eastern Michigan, there had to be people out there saying, Heather, don't take that job. They haven't been to a bowl game in whenever. That's a job that you'll last 4 or 5 years, and then maybe, you won't make it to the 5th or 6th year. But you said, watch me.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about your thinking about taking the job and then what you did when you got there.
Yeah, certainly you're right, Gene. People said, why? And I said, why not? If you want an opportunity to lead, Andy Geiger used to tell me, Heather, there's not a lot of golden batons. So anywhere you go, the job is open for a reason typically. And so there's work to be done no matter where you go. And, I think it was people also look at jobs in 2 ways, and coaches do this, staff members do this, and there's really 2 kinds of people. When you interview people, and I think that this is really important, that they look at the job, there's either they're saying, what can this place do for me, or what can I do for this place? And if it's a what can I do for this place kind of mentality, then that's the type of people you want in your organization. And that's how I approach Eastern Michigan. What can I do for this place? How can I make an impact here? How can I make it better? I loved it. I mean, I love the people. I love the location. I never didn't fly directly out of Detroit. I mean, there's a lot of positives about that opportunity. And I really did approach it. What can we do for this place? How do we make it better? And I remember Gene saying, Heather, this is an unbelievable opportunity. They need you. They need your leadership. And so I think that's the mentality that you have to have, as opposed to if you go into a job or an opportunity, what's this place going to do for me, or where's my next move? I think that shows through. And I think that's, you're probably not getting as much out of the opportunity as you can. So I love our experience at Eastern Michigan. And we bought passports for the football student athletes, a year and a half before we were eligible to go to the bowl game, to instill a belief in them that we were going to be prepared, that if we won 6 games, or if we won and became bowl eligible and we got a chance to go to the Bahamas Bowl, we're going to be ready. So I think it's about belief and internal belief in yourself and instilling that in your organization.
Well, you certainly brought a sense of belief to Eastern Michigan. There's no question about that. You've left your mark there. Heather, there's a lot of young administrators out there that are listening. There's a lot of women out there. What advice would you give to a young Heather Lyke? What advice would you give?
A couple things. I would say value who you work for most. Because the people that you work for in your organization, help them do the best job that they possibly can do. Take initiative in your job. Look for ways to help that, people. I can sit in a staff meeting all the time, and something will come up, and an idea will come up, and I often think to myself, man, how would we implement this idea? Who is going to do this? And when you have a staff member who says, I'd love to help do that. I'm happy to do that. Take on a new responsibility, take initiative, and make your organization better. That says a lot about a person. No doubt, work hard. That's innate. And again, I would, build relationships with people. I don't think it's about the quantity of relationships. You don't have to have 500 colleagues and 50 mentors, but invest in some really good ones, and build quality relationships versus quantity. I think that's really important too.
I think that's a wonderful point. When you get to be friends with somebody and they get to know you, they can do a heck of a lot better job of recommending you than when they just know this is Gene DeFilippo and he seems like a nice person, or this is Heather Lyke and she seems like a nice person, but they really can't recommend you unless you're a friend and you build a quality relationship.
Yeah.
Well said. I think that's really important for some of the young people out here to hear. Build some sound, long-term relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Heather, you've hired a lot of people in your career. If you had two candidates
Mm-hmm.
that were probably equal talent-wise, what would determine which candidate you hired?
Yeah, hiring is, in my opinion, I know fundraising is important and all that sort of thing. I think hiring people is the most important thing you do as a leader. I think hiring head coaches is by far the most important thing you do as an athletic director. They have an absolute direct impact on your student athletes' experience. As ADs and administrators, we sort of have an indirect impact, honestly. We may get to know a handful of kids directly, but really we have an indirect. So those head coaches are critical to not only the success of your organization, but to the quality of the student athlete's experience. If I have two candidates that are pretty equal, a couple things come to mind. One, I think it's important for them to have either a connection to the place or the people there, potentially. If they're from the area, that sometimes matters and makes a difference in their, wanting to be at your organization. I think, when they talk about their experiences and they can actually talk about something that they made an impact on or how they resolved a problem or, have really good experience that they can articulate. I think that weighs a lot because, they've been through it or they've done something. And then, recommendations matter. This is a people business, right? We all know people. And so again, having trusted colleagues in the industry who you can call and say, hey, this person worked in your organization, would you hire them again? And I really believe that, if you have good colleagues and friends out there that, we help one another and, they may want to go to X school and you want to help them get there. And so I think that's important too, is sometimes you can distinguish people just because of a relationship you have with someone who they worked with before. So that's important, and I think it's, impression is important. You gotta come in and win it and want the job. And, it's a gut feel. Andy used to tell me, we hired some head coaches together at Ohio State and I would say, why did you pick this person? He's like, Heather, are they in it for the right reasons? You got to trust your gut a little bit. And is this person in it for the right reasons? And I think there's some gut check sometimes too.
Well said. Earlier in our conversation, you mentioned that you worked for 3 outstanding athletic directors and they all had a different management style, but there had to be some similarities in characteristics. What are some of the characteristics that those 3 directors of athletics had on you as you came along?
Yeah, I think they all took sincere investment in me, like cared about me sincerely. I think they were wonderful, real, genuine people that genuinely cared about the people that worked for them, and it challenged me and gave me opportunities to grow. Each of them, Bob, I was really young and Bob just had confidence in me. He was like a grandpa that just, he was just the best. And he just had great confidence in his staff and he instilled that in you. He was a, disciplinarian and fiscally responsible and all that sort of thing. He, meeting started at 8:00. It started at 8. The door was locked if you didn't get there at 8, So, I sort of panicked the night before a staff meeting to get there. Because
you do when you're young, don't you?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Gosh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. And Andy was a change agent, so I learned a lot about not being afraid of change and being curious. And he was a visionary and a transformative leader. Obviously built unbelievable facilities at Ohio State and transformed the way that place looked. Um, you learned a lot by watching Andy, I think, and he had such strong values. He knew what he was going to do, and he did it. And always cared deeply about every sport. Believed in broad-based excellence. If we're going to have the sport, let's be great at it. And then Gene, just built relationships up and down across the organization better than anyone I knew, and up to the board of trustees, down to the people parking the cars, and you learned with Gene. I think I learned a lot about inclusive leadership. He'd bring you in and he'd want your opinion, and at times, and he led by being inclusive, transparent, not afraid to have tough conversations, not afraid to make you better. He'd pull you aside and say, "Hey, Heather, you can't shut down in a meeting like that. I know you weren't happy with the decision that came out, but you can't shut down in a meeting." Or Heather, you have your ideas. You got to listen to the group. You know what you want it to happen, but to get consensus, you got to listen to everybody. So, he would coach you along the way, which I really appreciated and needed, and everybody needs that at times. So
Everybody needs coaching, even us ADs.
Yeah.
Need lots of coaching.
That's right.
Heather, you've had lots of successes throughout your career, primarily at Eastern Michigan and at Pittsburgh. What are some of the most rewarding experiences that you've had as an athletic director?
It all surrounds people, right? So seeing student athletes go on and do great things, staying in touch, or hearing from student athletes in the past that you worked with who, are going to law school or getting, becoming a judge or getting married or those sorts of things. So I think the personal relationships with student athletes and coaches and seeing them have success is great. Your own staff, seeing them getting promotions or opportunities to grow and lead in different areas is rewarding. I do think facilities make a difference. They are the living and learning environments of our world. They are the classrooms and the labs. So I think opening, the football building at Eastern Michigan and seeing that vision come to reality. It opened after I left, but getting it all started and seeing that happen and touring that is awesome. The facilities that we've been able to build here at Pitt, the ones that just opened in December, when coaches say to you, "Man, I feel like a real coach now. I'm so proud. I'm so excited for recruits to come and visit. We have something to showcase." That makes you feel good because you provide them, with that environment and those tools and resources to be successful. So those are all, it's all relationship oriented and helping others.
Great. Well said. I remember one of my real rewarding times was when we had the first Rhodes Scholar at Boston College. That really was rewarding to see a student athlete receive that type of success and recognition was really neat. So yeah. I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Heather, I have to ask you about the future going forward. Have to ask you about name, image, and likeness because this is such a part of our daily conversation in college athletics. The NCAA came out yesterday with a recommendation that they're going to send on. What are your thoughts about this, and what has Pittsburgh done to be proactive with name, image, and likeness?
Well, we all knew it was coming. I think the pandemic may have put a little pause on it for a while, but we knew name, image, and likeness was eventually going to come. The reality is, our goal now is to help student athletes understand it, educate them about it. We've got to have our own policies as it relates to how we're going to help manage it, and then build it so it's not a taboo topic. It shouldn't be like, oh gosh, somebody wants to make, no, be transparent. Help us understand what you're trying to do. And then let's make sure we document and have, accountability for what you're doing and making sure that you don't, you're doing things the right way. But we have a program, we're going to launch ours tomorrow officially, publicly. It's called Forged Here, and it's all about name, image, and likeness. And it's really about how do we create innovators, brand builders, leaders, entrepreneurials, and the word forge means to create. And so we're going to help create those opportunities, whatever we're allowed to do within our policies. The NCAA is an interesting time, certainly implementing, interim policy as it relates to this topic and allowing states who have NIL laws in place to follow their state guidelines, and then allowing institutions that live in states that don't have a law yet to develop and implement their own. In Pennsylvania, we have a bill in front of the governor. He hasn't signed it yet, but we have mirrored our policy in line with the Pennsylvania law because we anticipate that to get adopted before federal legislation comes, or the NCAA comes up with some permanent legislation. So we're ready. We're prepared. We're going to meet with all of our teams on Wednesday in person, talk this through, have real dialogue and conversations about it. And we're, the student athletes that want to take advantage of it, will help them. And there'll be plenty that do and plenty that don't.
Yeah, it's great. Great answer.
Yeah.
Heather, the thing that I've always admired about you, there's lots of things I admire about you, but one of the things that I've always admired is you take a lot of pride in being a great wife. You take a lot of pride in being a wonderful mom. And you take a lot of pride in being a terrific director of athletics. How do you go about balancing your time and your efforts so that you can live a life that is not on one track, but rather on 3 or 4 different tracks?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the question and the comment. It's not easy. I wouldn't say I'm an expert or I've mastered it. But I will tell you that I think it's a lot about the quality of time that you spend on the tracks that you're on versus the quantity. You can never get the quantity of time that you want with your family. Like, it's just not going to happen. But can you make it good quality time? Because that's what's important. I feel bad because I know we missed each other. I was in New York City looking for an apartment for my oldest daughter, who's a junior in NYU. I got a junior volleyball player who's in the recruiting mix of a lot of schools and things like that. So we've been traveling with her, and then I got a little guy who's in rising 8th grader. So it's I look at it as a full life. One of my best friends who from high school, who's a lawyer out in Hingham, Mass, and he said, I'm so tired of people saying they're busy. Like, I'm busy. We're all busy. He's like, Heather, it's a full life. And that's true. It's a full life. Sometimes it's overflowing, but it is a full life. And I think you have to be thankful for the things that you're able to do and have and help others. And I think your kids are, resilient and understand, kind of the role that you play and you involve them when you can. I mean, I'm not in a courtroom. They can come to a game. I can't, they're like, you always talk through the whole game, Mom. You never sit and watch the game. But they can be there and enjoy the setting. And at times when they don't have other activities, they try to come and be a part of the scene. So.
Yeah, I can appreciate what you're going through. I got better, I think, through the years. Nobody's ever perfect at it, but I tried to gain control of my calendar. As soon as my children's game schedule would come out, my son John played football in high school. My daughter played basketball. My other daughter played field hockey. And then they all went on and played in college. But if I could control my calendar to get to their games, that was really, really special.
Yeah.
The family, it's not a job. It's a lifestyle for the director of athletics, but also for his or her family. Mm-hmm. And I notice when I'm around your family, they're all they've bought in. They love Pitt. Mm-hmm. They're proud of their mom. It's really exciting.
Yeah. No, thanks.
Heather, I'm going to open and just ask you if there's anything that you would like to say to the young men and women out there who want to be like Heather Lyke, who want to have a career like you've had, that have want to have a full life.
Mm-hmm.
What would you want to say that I haven't asked you?
I think I would say a couple things. I would just say, do the best job you can where you're at, doing whatever you're doing. Sometimes everybody's in this mad rush to get to the next opportunity. And I think it's really hard to have an impact at an organization in less than a couple of years. I mean, I think make an impact where you're at, do the best job you can, build great relationships with the people that you work with. It's a people business, and we live in coaches' worlds. Get to know coaches, get in their worlds. I mean, it's a hard job coaching. And I think it's important to be there when they're winning and losing and understand what they're going through and who they're recruiting and all that sort of thing. That stuff matters. I mean, as an administrator, connecting with coaches, I think, is important, and knowing that you're supporting them in many ways. And you can do that from any space that you're at. You don't have to be the athletic director to do that. You can do that in any job and take a liking to certain teams or coaches. And I think that that's important. Look for ways to make your organization better. And take initiative, along the way. Don't be afraid to, this isn't my job description. Who cares? Offer ways to help. And I think that people always look for that. Who's a great teammate and who's willing to do more. Great
advice. Heather, you demonstrated today why you're one of the top directors of athletics in the country. I want to thank you for your time. You've been a tremendous help. To young people that are going to listen to this podcast and want to be like you. And you left some great information, so I want to say thank you. And all the best to you and all of your coaches and administrators and student athletes at Pittsburgh.
Thanks, Gene. I appreciate it. You got it. Hail to Pitt.
We're out of time on this week's On the Fly College Edition. I'm your host, Gene DeFilippo. Thanks for your time this time, and we'll see you next time.